Hey everyone, welcome to PopCultX episode 24. This is Gabriel, your co-host, and as always, Danny.
Mr. Danny. Hey, how you doing, Gabe? See, you're a little more golden there.
Yeah,
How was your vacation?
it was great. Drank a lot of Mai Tais in Hawaii, and it was amazing. Swam with turtles, which I was super scared. I came over my fear because you couldn't really. I mean, you could see the bottom of the ocean, but then you see it like
Couldn't
fall.
touch
Yeah,
it.
you could see the fall. And so yeah, I was like definitely looking for sharks, but it was like a really transcendent moment of just swimming with these amazing turtles that it's really cool. So had a great birthday. Now that much closer to death, I guess. 24th year. And yeah, it was great. Lots of good food. Had some pop culture moments. Went on a Raptor tour, which is like these like quads that you ride, or like
hmm
really like souped up golf carts, I guess. I don't know. And on this ranch in Hawaii, and it's where they filmed like a ton of pop cult movies, like
Like Jurassic Park and
Jurassic
stuff.
Park,
Jumanji, maybe.
Godzilla. Um,
Oh, okay.
what was some of the other ones? Lost. Um, there was just like a ton of movies that they filmed there, and so it's kind of cool. We got down, saw some of the sets that are still left there from Jurassic Park. I think one of the recent ones with Chris Pratt. I think it was the second one that he was in was filmed there.
Fallen
Yeah,
Kingdom.
and so
Yeah.
there's like these fake rocks that like are made out of styrofoam or trees, which is kind of interesting in the middle of this like beautiful Hawaiian landscape, and then these like fake rocks. And then we stood in I think Godzilla's footprint. Which is kind of interesting that they actually like dug footprints, um, and as opposed to like just putting them digitally. I was like, wow, they're very
Right.
like, why would they do that? And they had to fill them up like more because they were a lot deeper, because the cows, because it is a working ranch, the
Oh
cows were like
no.
going in there, and then when it
Oh
rains,
no.
they're drowning.
Oh
And so
no.
I'm like, why would they make? I don't know, but it was cool. So that was a really cool. But we had a really cool tour guide that he filmed us while we were in the Godzilla footprint, and then he had sort of like a T-Rex puppet, a hand puppet. So he got really close to the camera, was like chasing after us. So that was really cool. And then there's just a lot of other like you know famous iconic things that we did in Hawaii. Went to Duke's, which is like famous like
hmm
Hawaiian, you
hmm
know,
I still have my T-shirt from there.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, nice. And
What? Whew, 19 years ago, maybe.
nice. And then what else? We went to Disney Aulani Resort. So,
hmm
again, Disney owning anything and everything. Which was it was actually really cool because there was only like I went to a luau for my birthday, and I thought it was going to be like very like Disney, like Moana will come out, and Lilo and Stitch, but Mickey Mouse and Minnie came out for like 2 seconds, and the rest of it was like a legit luau. It
Right
was
on.
interesting because they still are having pandemic related issues, so the seating was separate from everyone. They it wasn't family style, typical luau. It was like all served to you in a really box, but really great food. So I had a blast. Like I it was amazing. I On the trip over there, I was able to watch two really cool movies. One is The Last Black Man in San Francisco, which is sort of touch upon being the takeover of San Francisco by like rich people, and how the working class, or how people
Mm-hmm.
who lived there and created San Francisco are being pushed out. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a really interesting take. It's really beautifully shot, really well written, well acted. So I definitely recommend it. And then another one was I forget the name. It's with Billy Crystal and Tiffany Haddish, or is that her?
Like,
Tiffany? Is that her name? Haddish? Yeah,
yeah,
Tiffany Haddish.
I think so.
And it's about this old comic that he's like a writer for like an SNL type comedy show,
hmm
and he gets dementia, and she
Right. I know which movie you're
yeah,
talking
it's
about.
really good. It's really sad. It's really funny. But it's, you know, I guess a generational thing. Like that's, especially with our age, that's what we're gonna be, dealing for some of us a lot with our aging parents and having to take care of them. And
Right.
a really good movie. Billy
Yeah,
Crystal's
movie's called Here
yeah,
Today.
Billy Crystal's a comic genius, obviously.
Mhm.
Tiffany Haddish is very good in the movie. She plays a role that like I kind of almost see like a young Whoopi Goldberg would have played her, like had this movie taken place like
Mm.
a couple decades ago. Very kind of similar character. And because Billy is such a good fan, or not fan, friend with Whoopi Goldberg, I wonder if like when he was making this movie, because I think he wrote and directed it, if he had that sort of Whoopi Goldberg style of mind, because it like Whoopi Goldberg vibes, like her character like just
Right.
reminds me of Whoopi Goldberg a lot. So that was really cool. But other than that, I did a lot of relaxing, a lot of swimming. So not a lot of catching up on any shows, movies, or music or anything like that outside of older stuff. Ironically, Jurassic Park was playing on the TV in our hotel, so watch that again. And I still, I'm like, I've mentioned this before, how badly Stephen King made the children in that film, and how I hate how Steven Spielberg makes kids look just idiotic in his films. Watched it again,
Mhm.
and it's so bad. God, it's so stupid. Like I can't stand the kids in it, and their acting is so bad. And um, yeah, I can barely watch it.
That's funny.
Yeah,
I was watching on Netflix the movies that made us, and Jurassic Park was one of the episodes. So they're talking about how the movie was made, but they focused really heavily on because it was the first use of like the dinosaur
mhm.
CGI, right? So they focused heavily on how they transitioned from the animatronic dinosaurs into the CGI realm and how they captured that. So I think that part's fascinating to
Yeah,
me.
I love the dinosaurs. Like I'm a huge fan of dinosaurs ever since I was a kid. I love it, but I think that that's what aggravates me, is that like remembering how much I was into just dinosaurs and how I wasn't an idiot when I was a kid. And so like when the kids act like idiots, I'm thinking it's just so unrealistic. And then just the kids are just like annoying as f. And so yeah, but I do love the movie. Like it is a great movie. I can't stand the way how he does kids. Steven
I hear you.
Spielbergian children.
Well, I saw that you also did a lot. You were posting already a lot of your photography from when you were in Hawaii, and that was really cool. Like the images you shared from I think it was a Buddhist
Mhm.
temple you
Yeah.
visited. Wow,
Yeah, we were eating at
that
like
was
a
really great.
cafe just down the street, and so I looked up on Yelp like local interest, and that came up. And luckily enough, it was open during the pandemic. There was literally like no one there. So it was just the two of us like sort of wandering around. You can't shoot inside the temple, so
Temple, but
yeah, I obviously like respected that. But the grounds themselves were super beautiful, like
oh yeah,
photographic, like just perfect for pictures. Like it was really beautiful. It's like up on this like ridge of the mountains, and so you have a like amazing view of like Honolulu. And it was just really peaceful and like perfect just to walk around and like have, because Honolulu is like a big city, there's like tons of tourists. And
mm-hmm,
um
mm-hmm.
it was nice to get away and just have like a really peaceful moment and like look at these like lotus flowers. And there was a bunch of bees like sort of flying around, and it was kind of a cool zen moment. Yeah,
Nice. That's very cool. I read a book, I watched a movie, and I listened to some music while you were away. So
nice.
I kept myself entertained.
So what, I'm curious, what
um,
music?
so the new album from Halsey just came
Mhm,
out. It's called "If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power." It was produced by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross of Nine Inch Nails
mhm,
fame, but it is a fantastic album. I'm not a real big Halsey fan to begin with, never have been, but this changed my mind.
mhm.
It's just that I think, and it's such a great album. I mean, the pulse pounding beat to the one song that I really liked. It's just fantastic. And if you haven't heard it, I recommend you go listen to it because it will blow your mind.
Yeah.
It's just so great. I really enjoyed it,
Nice. I'll
and I
have to
think
check it
everyone else
out.
will too.
Yeah, I am a big fan of hers. I think she's a great performer. I've seen some live performances that she's done that have been like really really cool. Um, Obviously, I love like Nine Inch Nails, like their production and the musicality that they're able to bring out
Hmm.
with like the artists that they work with is great. So that I'm really excited about. I did sort of keep abreast on some pop culture things, and so Kanye West released a new album. I think Donda, which is his mom's name, and getting a little bit of controversy because of course that's the realm in which he works in.
Thrives.
Yeah, and he performed and he invited the baby and Marilyn Manson on stage
Right, I saw
to
that.
perform with
Hmm.
him, or I don't think Marilyn Manson actually performed but was just like on set or whatever. The reason why it's controversial is because obviously the baby has made some disparaging remarks about the LGBT community and then like backtracked, apologized. Marilyn Manson has been accused of like just really horrendous things, assault, abuse by
Hmm.
like 15 women, including Evan Rachel Wood, who was his partner for a great number of years. And so I kind of, this is like one of the things why I don't like Kanye West is because I like people that can let their art speak for itself, without having to court the circus or controversy. And
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
just me like it really stinks of desperation. And
Yeah.
maybe he feels that like he's not on the top of the pop culture realm where he's not as hot anymore and he needs to get that attention. But like Marilyn Manson isn't exactly hot. I mean, he hasn't really had an album out that's like been really like uh in the top of the charts. The baby has had like recent success, so that somewhat makes sense, and it's within the hip hop community. But I mean, Marilyn Manson, I mean, I think was in an Eminem video too. So like that has even been done where a rapper has referenced Marilyn Manson and to try to get that little bit of controversy or discuss Marilyn Manson and the controversy that
Hmm.
surrounds him. So like that's not even fresh. And so I just kind of feel like it's a bit desperate for him. I haven't heard the album because I'm not really a huge fan of Kanye West. I have some friends that listen to it and were like, ugh, like they weren't impressed. So I probably won't be listening to it anytime soon. The kind of spin-off topic from that was Evan Rachel Wood performed after seeing that happen and mentioning it on her social media, saying that she was triggered and re-traumatized by seeing him, Marilyn Manson, and she performed a cover of a song. I can't think of the song now, but it references Marilyn Manson, and
Oh, okay.
I think it says like Courtney Love and Marilyn Manson will kick your ass in or something. I'm pretty sure you've heard of this song. It's like kind of
Yeah,
upbeat.
I think
It's
I've heard of it.
I won't sing
Hmm.
it, but as she was singing it, she says Marilyn Manson, and she like sort of gives the finger, and the crowd started cheering. And I prefer that moment. I prefer to see someone who has overcome that trauma and abuse and is now
Hmm.
not afraid to say f you to Marilyn Manson. And she has discussed how she was groomed as like a young teen, 17, and
Hmm.
was subjected to really horrific things. And we do live in United States, so you're like innocent until proven guilty. However, I think that with Marilyn Manson in his music, in his art, in his behavior, he sort of told you who he is.
Who he
And
is, right?
when
Exactly.
when people show you who they are, you should believe that. And the women that have come forward and discussed their abuse at his hands, I do believe them. And so I'm certainly, I hate the word cancel because that's such a ridiculous, like the way the media has taken cancel culture and kind of run with it. But I am like erasing him from my my music. I was a fan of some of his music just because I tend to
Hmm.
like sort of that style of music. Um, but it has ruined it. Um, I now sort of equate him with that type of behavior, and I certainly
Right,
don't approve
right.
of it, and it's disgusting behavior. So I'm done with that, and I don't know. I think that Kanye West should be a little bit more smart of the way he courts publicity, and let his music speak for itself, um, and kind of go from there. But I don't applaud that. Him bringing on controversial figures just to get attention, like that. That's weak.
Well, that's been his MO from almost the beginning, right? He creates this spectacle
Hmm.
and wants people to notice him. And then I've never really heard much of his music, so I'm sure he's been labeled. I know he's been labeled like a musical genius before,
Yeah,
but I don't know if it's more of the spectacle or maybe, like you said, he's just desperate and relying on something to get his name back out there
yeah,
because he doesn't want to be forgotten, or they get used to this certain level of not notoriety, but this level of fame that when it's fleeting, they start grasping at everything. Maybe.
yeah. Well, and I can see how he may be a fan of the music of Marilyn Manson, but as far as aligning himself with someone like that, I mean, he famously Kanye West does like the Sunday service with Kanye West, where he's like
Hmm.
supposedly this big Christian and praise music and all of that, and then to now because he has a new record, he's hanging out with like a full fledged like Church of Satan member who you know it's so stupid. Like it's like, what's real? Like, are you really the Christian and you're aligning yourself with someone that
Hmm.
famously like rips pages out of the Bible and like and I'm not saying that that's bad. Like I liked that Marilyn Manson, the ripping the pages out of the Bible, the like antichrist superstar. I just don't like the abuse, and but I'm kind of curious how Kanye West, who is this praise Jesus, Sunday service guy, and how do you then get Marilyn Manson to be, with you on stage? Like it just doesn't make sense to me outside of you're desperate for attention and you're looking for controversial figures to align yourself with so that you
Yeah.
can get notoriety, which is, like I said, lame. So yeah, so outside of that, you said music. What was the you said you watched some stuff?
Oh, I watched a movie. I watched it was a silly comedy on was it Hulu? I think Vacation Friends with John Cena and I can't even say his name. Lil Rel Howery, who's been tearing it up all summer actually. He's been in so many different movies from Free Guy, Fatherhood, and Vacation Friends. But Vacation Friends, it was just so funny to me. I don't know. I was laughing throughout it. It was like if you like The Hangover, the
Hmm.
comedy of like that style of The Hangover, or like Bridesmaids, the kind of like raunchy,
Yeah, late night comedy.
like it was. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a blast, and I can see watching it. And one thing I spoke a little bit last week with our guest interview, Derek Torgerson, was pro wrestlers and how they're moving more into mainstream acting, and we didn't talk about John Cena, but we should have because he is really um starting to build his comedic brand, I
Hmm.
think, and he has a certain delivery style that's like the kind of like the everyman in a
Hmm.
way, but also it's spot on, and he has a great delivery, and I think he makes that movie as well. So it's, if you haven't seen it, Vacation Friends, it's really funny.
Nice. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I when I think of like wrestling superstars, like definitely John Cena, The Rock, come to mind.
Hmm.
Like The Rock is like killing it. Like he's a full fledged like A-list star now, I think,
Yeah.
like action
Hmm.
star.
Oh, definitely.
And so yeah, it's funny because I saw someone in Hawaii, a like super jacked up security guard at like a grocery store, and I was like, he looked exactly like The Rock, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure The Rock is from Hawaii, right? I think, or Samoan Islands,
Yes, I think
Pacific Islander.
he is from Hawaii.
Yeah, and so I'm like,
Yeah,
I
he
wonder if
is.
he's like a relative of his because he looked exactly like him.
It's funny you say that because there was like on social media right now. I guess there's like some sheriff in some town in Texas that's like a dead ringer for The Rock.
That's
So
hilarious.
they put pictures of both of them side by side, and they look exactly alike. It's like, wow. And even I think The Rock commented on it, and he was like, wow, this guy gets more respect, upholding the law, being a first responder and whatnot. But it's just amazing how closely they resembled each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, he is tearing it up, A-lister, and it's just someone who I look forward to seeing all his work, because I enjoy his style, and he was a little bit past my wrestling viewing time, but the movie part, yeah, I really enjoy
Yeah.
him and Dave Bautista.
Yeah. 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 He's another one too that has been in a lot of really good stuff. And I'm a fan of his because he has like it's comedic, and then also though, like how you were saying, like an everyday man. Like he's not. I think The Rock kind of rises above like the everyday
Mm-hmm.
Joe, but Dave
Mm-hmm.
Bautista sort of
Mm-hmm.
has that sort of like everyday man, but just super jacked kind of vibe about him. So
Well,
he,
yeah, he can also pull off, I think, the more dramatic role. I think of like Blade Runner 2049 when he was in that, and he played that, the farmer who had to do stuff that maybe he wasn't happy about and just hurt him, and he had that emotional side to him.
mhm,
So yeah,
nice. And then so the other monumental news is that you read a book. What was that?
I did. I read a book. It's called 10 Dead Comedians, and it's a murder mystery. It's set, and the great thing about the book was that the author, Fred Van Lente, um, was, when he was writing it, I guess I was already picturing the movie in my head.
Mhm,
So I don't know if he wrote it as with that in mind, to make it into a movie, but it's about 10 comedians or former comedians, maybe on the twilight side of their careers,
mhm,
who get summoned to this island to work on a new project for this huge comedian who like inspired all of them. And of course, they end up, well, it's in the title, but dead.
yeah,
But it's a take on like an Agatha Christie, Then There Was None um, book, so it has that sort of like who done it type thing
yeah.
with Clue, and it's just a fabulous novel that I encourage everyone to read. And the fun thing about that is that we actually, let's bring on Fred Van Lente for your enjoyment. I contacted him via Twitter, and he graciously agreed to come on our show. So we are very excited to be joined today by a New York Times best-selling author, Fred Van Lente. Welcome to the show, Fred. It is great to have you here. Um,
Thanks for having me.
I came into your. I want to say I learned about you as I was doing some research because I wanted to look up some comedic monologues to get back into my acting phase. Get back into that mode. And so I
Very
was in my
cool.
library app and I was looking up comedic monologues, and then your novel 10 Dead Comedians showed up. So I was like, what is this? I'd never heard of it before. I read the short description of it, and it sounded hilarious. So of course, I read it, and absolutely fantastic book, fantastic novel. And then as I'm reading it, I go, "Who is
Thank
this
you.
guy? Never heard of him before." So then I go start to look you up, and I see your prolific writing credentials within the comic book industry. Wow, it is just
It's true.
amazing. You've done everything from like Amazing Spider-Man, Captain America, Taskmaster, Marvel Zombies, X-Men Noir. It's just, and then that's just on the Marvel side, which is what I'm a big fan of. You've also written for DC. You've done Archer and Armstrong, which I just started to look up, and they sound fabulous. I'm going to start reading them soon. But I'm not a big comic book fan
Fantastic.
until recently. That's Gabriel's side. So
That's
Gabriel,
me.
when I saw his
You can
credentials,
tell from Gabriel's background that that's more his purview.
exactly, I thought this would be wonderful for Gabe to have a chance to chat with you about comic books because I know Gabe's a big comic book fan.
Sure.
So
Yeah, so I have a ton of questions for you, Fred. I want to thank you once again for joining us on our little podcast here. Um, I don't want to inundate you with too many fanboy questions, but just briefly, can you let us know?
That's what I'm here for.
Can you let us know how you got started in the industry? The Cliff Notes version, if you will.
Sure. As to paraphrase Ernest Hemingway in The Sun Also Rises, I did it two ways, very gradually, then all at once. The I started making comics with my buddies at Syracuse University. One of them, Steve Ellis, went on to, while he was still an undergraduate, in fact, to work for Valiant and Marvel and DC and uh, I'm missing one, Ultraverse Malibu. And so I just moved to New York City with him and some of my friends. One of those, Ryan Dunleavy, I still do comics with. Literally, I was talking to him earlier today about a comic we're doing for the city of New York.
Nice.
And we just sort of struggled. Like I said, Steve broke in really quickly, but then Steve and I ended up doing a comic together called The Silencers that sort of got me. It was this indie comic for the small outfit out of Chicago called Moonstone Books. And that got me noticed by Marvel, and Marvel hired me to write stuff around 2005, and I was there until about 2012. I've had a couple go around since then, but then obviously I've worked at a bunch of other companies and written novels also, and still doing comics today, still working on new properties and working for new publishers, which is really exciting at this point in my career.
Awesome. So it sounds like you kind of just started doing and just started making and creating content to kind of get the attention in order to open up doors. Is that what you would recommend to those people out there that are wanting to get in the industry, is just start doing it for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I had the advantage because I had a good friend who was already a professional, published Marvel artist. So that was definitely a plus. That really was not as much of an advantage as you might think. I think he would agree with that also. But yeah, in particularly because the barrier to entry is so much lower now than, when I was doing it and starting out, the internet really couldn't handle the picture files you need to make online comics and web comics work that well. So you still had to go through print. Like one of the first things that Ryan Dunleavy and I did was this book, Action Philosophers, and we actually got a grant from Peter Laird's Xeric Foundation. He was actually in the 90s taking some of that, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird created Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and made a lot of money. Eastman went and founded this publisher called Tundra and bought Heavy Metal magazine, did a lot of other things. Peter Laird founded this foundation that gave money for self-publishers, and that's how we self-published. So, I'm like probably the last generation of like the dead tree comics creators, who that's how we started out. Folks now who have Webtoon and Tumblr and all these other resources. Kickstarter wasn't around obviously when I was doing it, so definitely just start doing it, because it's not a situation where if you really want to write Spider-Man, for example, you're not going to submit Spider-Man pitches to Marvel and get hired, for one thing. Their legal department won't let them read them, much less do anything about it. What they're going to want to do is what the big publishers want is they want somebody who they know is going to do the job they're hiring them to do, and they reach that conclusion by reading other comics you've done.
Right. One thing I noticed, Fred, and this just speaks to what you were just talking about, is on your website you very kindly give out like templates to scripts for how people can format their comic, as writers can format their scripts. Now, is that something that you just trying to give back to people, wanting to break in, or did someone give something like that to you and you're just trying to, pay it forward as well?
Yeah, I mean, essentially what happened was that I developed this format. I'm a big fan of Steve Gerber, who was a big Marvel and DC writer in the 70s and 80s. And when I was on CompuServe, talking about early as the internet,
CompuServe, yes,
in the 80s, like someone had uploaded like an unpublished Howard the Duck script. He was created Howard the Duck. And he did this sort of parody Howard the Duck. He was going to do a parody of like Marvel Superhero Wars and Crisis and Inverse and all the big crossovers. And so I just sort of copied his style because it was there. And I was sort of very flattered that other like letterers in particular were recommending people use that format because I like how it looked. Nate Picos, who's a great letterer, primarily for Dark Horse, but he does a lot of stuff for Image also. He did a whole thing on his site about how he likes my format. And actually, he's got a great book coming out from Image that's about how to letter for comics. And if you are interested in lettering or doing comics, I absolutely would recommend picking it up. But yeah, I ended up doing those templates because he actually wrote a whole article about his format, and now a bunch of pros use my format as their primary
That's cool.
Temple like Jim Zub and Greg Pox adopted it, and Mags Pasagio, and I've seen a lot of other people use it, and it's very crowded. It's very cool. It's a very cool feeling.
That's cool.
It's one of those things that like I think only I know about it because it's not like and it's not like it's not like screenplay format, which has this very set specific style that literally everybody uses. This is comics is sort of much more fluid, but I always liked that. I always preferred it. Like a lot of people use like Final Draft to do screenplay format, but I always a fan of that.
Right on.
So, doing research on you, I see that you have an academic background, and you made the decision to go into the comic book realm. And what attracted you to comics? Like, how far back does your interest in comics go? From childhood days? I know you're a fan of Jack Kirby. What?
Far back. The first thing I remember reading was my father's copy of this 1966 book called The Great Comic Book Heroes, which was this book that the cartoonist Jules Pfeiffer did. It was sort of this wave of the superhero nostalgia that was partly inspired by the success of the Adam West Batman TV show, which also premiered early in 1966. I was born in 72, so it makes it sound like I'm that old. But someone had given it to my dad for his birthday, and it was lying around the house, and it's got a bunch of comics in it, and like in addition to Pfeiffer's essay where he talks about learning the business in the comic shops of the late 40s. He started out as a assistant to Will Eisner, who created the Spirit. But it was this very funny essay, and it sort of showed his. I guess one thing that never really like sunk in until right now I started talking about, which is funny because I've told the story like literally 700 times, is that Pfeiffer has some of his old comics from when he was like a child, like a 6-year-old, and he reprinted those. And I think that's sort of what inspired me to sort of copy him, because it wasn't just the fact that there were like the origins of Captain America and Hawkman and Superman and Batman and all that stuff, but Pfeiffer actually put in his own childish like copying of the Golden Age comics, and that kind of imprinted on me, I think, at a very early age. And as a kid, I started drawing comics and writing comics. My mother got sick of like reading this book to me to the point where she was like, "I'm not reading this to you anymore." So I would actually I just sort of sat there and like stared at the pictures and tried to figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
So speaking of those iconic characters, you've tackled some really iconic characters, on your resume and in your work. I would imagine that's incredibly intimidating, having, all of the fanboys, having these big publishing companies sort of peering over your back to, see what you're going to do with these characters. How do you tackle that? How do you tackle, someone that is so well known, loved, beloved, and put your spin on it, but still honoring the character?
Well, you kind of have to be arrogant, to a certain degree. Like false modesty never, I think that doesn't help anybody in life, but it certainly does not help you in show business. I mean, you've got to be kind of largely full of shit, I think, to kind of make it in this in this business, because you kind of have to believe your own hype. Otherwise, yeah, you do get intimidated, and it can be very frightening. But I spent my youth like thinking of all these comic stories, so it's just stuff I'd done since I was a kid for fun. And my friends, my buddies, and I would come with our own stories for these various characters in college and stuff. So it's not like it was now I was just getting paid for what I was doing for free anyway. So it's not like I was just sort of like, I just didn't, the opportunity didn't just sort of fall out of the sky. I'd been prepping myself for this opportunity literally almost my entire life.
Right.
So
Right on.
It actually was not. Your question is sort of interesting to me, because it literally never occurred to me that I couldn't do it. Like it's interesting. Nice. You make a good point. Like, but it didn't intimidate me because, like I said, you picture you have the ideation right of doing it, and then when it actually comes time to do it, And the other aspect of it is that you never like. The companies are almost never going to come to you and say, "Well, what do you want to do with Spider-Man?" It's always like, "Well, this is the current state of the Spider-Man strip. You now have to do something in this box that we've put you in." It's like an escape room. It's like you got to figure out how to get out. It's like, this crazy, hoops and locks to pick and stuff. So part of it is just the pure. I love puzzles. I love riddles and figuring stuff out. And And that's sort of I really kind of get off on the sheer number of obstacles they try to, like, I'm doing a job right now for a role-playing game where I've got to write a bunch of stories, and all I have are these like illustrations from the game book, and it's like, it's just, here's a raft and a guy and a goblin and there's a barrel and there's palm trees and it's a beach, and then you're like, what? It's just a bunch of random stuff, and so it's, I actually really get a kick out of trying to figure that stuff out.
That's cool.
Nice.
That's really cool. So with the state of the, I'll say, comic book industry and superhero movies, has there been any one of your stories that you'd say, damn, they should make that into a movie, or any one of your, I guess, comic books that you've written that you say that would be a perfect movie? Why aren't they doing it?
Well, I've had Cowboys and Aliens was a book of mine
That's
that got
right.
turned into a movie.
Yes. Right.
I had a bunch of characters and a book I did called MODOK's 11 that got incorporated into Patton Oswalt's great MODOK's
On Hulu, right?
Marvel's MODOK TV show on Hulu, which I highly recommend. It would have been fun to see the Taskmaster book get made. I think that might have been screwed the pooch by what they did with that character in Black Widow. But maybe not, considering what they did with the character in Black Widow. I suppose that doesn't preclude another Taskmaster from coming into the MCU later on down the line. If you have a pulse and you have an independent comic, they're gonna, like, I had a book called Dark Horse from Dark Horse called Weird Detective that was optioned forever for a TV show. I have other non comics properties, perhaps ones that have been mentioned on this podcast before, that are currently under option and being developed. So that's very exciting. But yeah, so I'd love a Weird Detective. I just like that book. I think that'd make a great movie. With the Marvel stuff, it'll be interesting. One of my favorite things I did with Marvel, and the thing that really sort of put me on the map, was when Greg Pak and I did Incredible Hercules, which is a unique strip that everybody seemed to get a kick out of. Unfortunately, Marvel then got bought by a company that has its own Hercules property. So the idea that the Marvel Hercules is going to supplant the Disney Hercules anytime soon seems fairly unlikely. But I've heard they've been developing Archer and Armstrong. I mean, it's Hollywood; they're just a bottomless maw for material.
Yeah, that's true.
They're I wrote a novel called The Con Artist. If you enjoyed the Tending Communities, you might follow up The Con Artist, which was a murder mystery set at San Diego Comic-Con.
Right.
I was really proud of that book. That'd be cool to be made into a movie, but I would be happy for anything. I got a character Greg and I created from Incredible Hercules was in Age of Ultron, the Avengers movie. So, it's happened.
I guess a follow.
There's no reason not to think it won't happen again.
Right. Well, how much input as a writer? Because I know some authors that I've read, and they don't want their characters turned into movies because they lose control over the character. Do you feel that way at all about any of your characters that you've created, that like, oh, I don't want them made into a movie because this is my vision for that character, and I know Hollywood's going to ruin it?
I mean, that's a really good position. My position is that I really like money. So,
Me too.
well, and Steve, they asked Stephen King this question once, where they were like, "Well, does it upset you that so many crappy movies have been made from your books, and then they supplant the books?" And he said, he turned to his shelf. He's like, "What do you mean? They're all right here." So,
okay.
What you find, like for example, one thing comics pundits complain about a lot is that why haven't comic sales gone up? Because there's so many movies, why aren't movie sales going through the roof? But I can tell you that the problem with that kind of myopic, or maybe insufficiently myopic view, is that they do go up. Like Cowboys and Aliens, the book is one of my New York Times bestsellers, and it would not have been had there not been a movie coming out at the same time. You know what I mean? So what happens is that the movies do promote the books, maybe not as much as the fans would like. But they do, the rising tide definitely lifts all boats, and it doesn't really, Marvel wouldn't have reprinted my Taskmaster book like they did if that character wasn't in some version in Black Widow.
I'm curious.
So
Sorry, Fred, to interrupt there, but
sure.
I'm curious if speaking of different characters that you've worked on, is there maybe an assignment that you wish you had on working on maybe an obscure character that you just always have loved, that you would love to kind of flesh out and develop into, maybe a series or a book, that you'd like to see?
Um, no, not really. I mean, I've been doing this for a while
Uh-huh.
now, so like what I find exciting is for when publishers come to me with stuff that I would have thought that I would be
Mhm.
into, like Dynamite. Like Garth Ennis just created not so long ago created this female Punisher character, this Jennifer Blood character. I'm writing the new series for Dynamite, and it's just this gory grindhouse like vigilante murder spree, and I freaking love it. I think it's one of the best things I've ever written, and I'd never heard of this character. I knew nothing about her until Dynamite, approached me to do it. So when I get excited, when you number one, you can't get too hung up on, oh, I really want to write Batman or whatever it is that you want to do, because the bottom line is that that's not up to you, and it really is. I don't care how, unless if Steven Spielberg called up DC and said, I want to write a Batman comic, they would let him. But unless you're at that level, it's just not going to happen. And they're not going to give Steven Spielberg the Batman ongoing. They're going to give him his own little, carve out of that character. You know what I mean? So it won't be really officially Batman.
Yeah.
He's Steven Spielberg. Why does he care? I just pulled that name out of the hat. But it's the same principle. If you're not Steven Spielberg, they're not just going to give you the character and be like, go for it. Like that's not how that works.
Yeah.
There's always some sort of initiative that the company is going to want you to enact or work on. So I mean, it'd be fun to do like maybe some of the Jack Kirby. At one point I was talking to DC about doing some of the Jack Kirby characters, like Challenge the Unknown or
Mhm.
the Demon or something like that. It'd be fun to do the Doom Patrol, the original Doom Patrol, but mostly DC characters have never really worked for DC. So I guess it's sort of more, that's the one sort of unscratched itch. But again, I don't, you don't, I don't think about it because, it's just a daydream. Like you at a certain point, you sort of realize that, it's great to have dreams, but one thing, when you start, living out your dreams, they stop being dreams, they become reality, and so they're, your dreams, you have total control over, right? Reality
Yeah.
is in the meat space, is you deal with other people in physics and all sorts of other things.
On the flip side of that, did you get an assignment that you weren't as excited to work on and it was real work to kind of get through, or maybe you kind of rolled your eyes like, ugh, I have to do this?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, I the one thing that really leaps to mind is I've never liked the X-Men, so I got a Wolverine title. I just didn't get Wolverine. He just seemed like angry, hairy guy with knives in his hand. I couldn't get it. Like I could care less. But writing him, and particularly because we paired it with Kitty Pryde, who's a fun character, and sort of those two interacting with each other and playing off each other, that I really did end up loving that series, which was called Wolverine First Class. And I'm invariably at any comic con, like a mid-20s woman comes up to me and says, "This is my favorite comic when I was a kid." And I was like, "Thank you." And I'm like, "I'm so old." I feel so old. Thank you, young lady. Thank you, young lady, for calling. Can my arthritic hands sign this comic? But it's a cool feeling.
That is cool. That is really cool. So I'm gonna circle back to 10 Dead Comedians real quick. And in that book, you do a lot of pop culture references. So with that being said, what inspires you in pop culture? What are you kind of like currently binging or watching or taking in reading, or what's currently in like your eyesight that you're enjoying right now?
I got a Shudder subscription. I don't do a lot of I guess I do more horror than I give myself credit for, but I love Shudder. I love all the old. I like anything with I like old movies.
Okay.
So I've been watching a lot of the Italian giallo flicks for Jennifer Blood, like Mario Bava stuff, and Dario Argento stuff. Less Bava, sorry, more, and Fulci and all those guys. I'm enjoying The Nick, which is this hospital show that Steven Soderbergh did for Cinemax that is now on HBO Max. I'm really enjoying that. Loved the Suicide Squad. That might be my favorite live action superhero movie.
Same here.
I saw it once on HBO Max and then liked it so much, my wife and I went and actually saw it in the theater. So you're welcome, James. Doing our part to boost that BO. What else? I just read the whole run of the Doom Patrol. I write a semi-monthly, twice monthly comics column for 13th Dimension, which is a great website my buddy Dan Greenfield runs. It's kind of a retro culture site, and so we do this thing where we pit. I do this thing where I pit like similar titles against each other. So the latest one was, we call it Comic Book Deathmatch. It's a silly name for this column.
Oh, nice.
So we pit the Doom. We pit two. This is, a lot of people know this, but so two. DC and Marvel introduced two superhero teams that were sort of misfit freaks, led by a guy in a wheelchair, right? And they came out with 3 months of each other. It was Doom Patrol and X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pit the runs of Doom Patrol and X-Men against each other. So I read all the Doom Patrol, the original Doom Patrol, which I'd never done before. And that was just some rad insanity. Because the Grant Morrison Doom Patrol is one of my favorite comics of all time. So it was cool to go back to the original. Because I'd only read like samples from the first year, but now I've read the whole thing. It was a fun beach vacation.
That's really cool.
That'd be a great book to see, Doom Patrol versus the X-Men. I know you said you're not a big fan, so I think maybe they would get demolished.
Oh, if I did the Doom Patrol versus the X-Men? I mean, I don't know. The X-Men outnumber the Doom Patrol like 10 to 1. It does not seem like a fair fight. Maybe it would be the Doom Patrol versus the original 5 X-Men who were on the team when they were being published simultaneously. Yeah. So that would be slightly fairer.
Well,
but
speaking of DC and Marvel and Doom Patrol and the X-Men crossover, so I was reading Marvel Zombies last night, just kind of get into the moment for today, and they talked of, well, there's multiverse, omniverse, alternaverse. Is that something that you guys just like? How many different type of verses are there? Or I mean, I'm not a huge comic book fan, like I said, but so is that something that you guys just what kind of verse should we make today, or how would you cross over those two different publishers into one? I know they've done crossovers before, though.
Well, they did a thing in the 90s when I was just getting out of college called the Tangent Universe. I mean, no, it was Amalgam Universe, where they actually merged the two together. Okay. So you have like Super Soldier was sort of super Clark Kent crossed with Steve Rogers and that kind of thing. I mean, I don't. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's not an idea that excites me very much. I can certainly see like, and I had just read for the same column the Great Teen Titans and X-Men crossover that Walt Simonson and Chris Claremont did back in 83, 84, maybe 82. But it's a fun assignment. You kind of end up getting mired. Just having done Hercules and Psy Lords and a bunch of sort of big concept science fiction books, I just am not enamored. I want to do. That's partly why I'm gushing so much, enthused so much about Jennifer Blood, which is a very kind of street level, down to earth crime book. I've just kind of lost interest in gods and godlike cosmic powers and all that stuff. Even Kirby took a break from that every once in a while. So I don't really. In fact, I'm doing a couple superhero things right now where, against the editor's wishes, I'm like, let's tone this. Let's bring it down. Bring the power level down. Just because I find it just more interesting. And I guess I just find it hard to relate. Like, I feel like I've said all Fred Van Lente, can say about cosmic archetypes and gods and things. It just I can't handle it. And the idea of like merging the streams and kind of, because I've been hired to do this, do these big cosmic crossovers before. We ended Incredible Hercules with this book called Chaos War, which was literally like the entire multiverse gets destroyed. It just goes completely bananas. But I guess I'm more interested in telling human stories at this point.
That's cool.
So if there's if Daredevil met Batman, just to pull out what that would, I guess, could be interesting. But
I think I'm more of a fan of what you're saying. The more the street level, the grit, the human not human
Sure.
interest story, but you know, the human level where it's just a normal guy or an enhanced normal guy, not a godlike creature, and that really pulls in my
Right.
attention more. So yeah, I hear you.
So outside of the comic book realm, I'm because you know it is your job, it is your work. Uh, what do you do to escape from that? Like, what are you a big sports guy? Are you big music, movie? I know you mentioned you liked horror movies, but I'm sure you know at one point you clock out and you're like, I'm done with comics for the day.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, when you're a freelancer, and this is even, I think a lot of people are struggling with this during the pandemic lockdown, working from home and stuff. But I've always started at 9 and ended at 5, and I try not to work on the weekends. So it's just to keep a very strict schedule. I like cooking, gardening. I like bicycling. I'm a big biker. I am a sports fan. I like the Mets, unfortunately. But we all need challenge in our lives. But I like video games a lot.
Nice.
Playing Fallout 76 right now.
Oh yeah,
I'm a little
playing
behind.
that.
It's 5 years old, but I'm enjoying it.
But it's such a great game, though. Fallout 76 is just, an
I do.
immense world.
I
and
like it.
it's-
Well,
yeah,
I'm a huge Fallout fan.
Okay.
Top 3 favorite video game franchises,
Yeah.
and I hadn't played this one yet because I didn't want to because it's the shared world thing, and I play video games to get away from people. I have no interest in interacting with them in my video games.
I agree.
But fortunately, because it's 5 years old, I've only encountered a couple players wandering around my space, and I just ignore them. They probably think I'm a dick.
Hey, I'm there with you. I ignore when I play that game. I ignore everyone else. I just go do my own thing. And I really love Fallout 76 and the time era that it's set in, with like the late early 50s. I would think that's what like the technology looks like, or looks like.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that game, so I'm right there with you. Now, you wrote a play on the life of Jack Kirby with your wife. Is that correct?
I did. I co-wrote it with my wife, Crystal Skillman. Yeah.
Now, you guys, I think I read that during the pandemic or 2020, you guys translated that into an audio podcast play. Is that correct?
We did. It is called King Kirby. It is available wherever you can get it on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts.
That's cool.
And just it was Kirby's birthday as we're speaking just this past Saturday, and we dropped the binge episode, which is all episodes as one episode.
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah, definitely.
If you're the impatient sort, you can listen to that.
Right on. That is really cool. I'll have to go check that out. I mean, I know of Jack Kirby, but I don't know of Jack Kirby. So it'd be fascinating to learn more about his life through your play and podcast.
It came out really good. It's a recording of the original New York cast. If you're a Venture Brothers fan, Kirby's played by Stephen Rattazzi, who played Dr. Orpheus on the Venture Brothers. And it's just really well done. Our buddy Bobby Cronin sound mixed it and edited it and provided with some great music. We've gotten some really nice feedback. It's been very successful. It's been a very cool feeling to get that story out there.
That's really cool. That is really cool.
Just one last kind of question. Your stuff is everywhere. So our listeners can find your work everywhere. Hard to escape. Very
right.
Prolific writer. But
even if you want to, you can't get away. But why would you want to?
Right. So if someone was gonna read, what's the one piece of work that maybe stands out for yourself? I know it's probably like picking your favorite child or something like that. But if you had to pick and say, check out my work, is it the most current thing? What are you most proud of?
Well, I mean, at the moment, I'm most proud of Jennifer Blood, the first issue of which drops next month in October. Nice. The FOC, if you want to order your comic store, is coming up in the next couple weeks. So definitely do that. That's, like I said, a crime, mystery, horror, bloody, fun fest
nice.
comic in the vein of, I guess, Attended Comedians, although slightly less jokes. Takes itself slightly more serious than Attended Comedians, but I think if you were going to read prose, Attended Comedians, or if you like, or The Con Artist, are my 2 published novels. Although the third one I've contracted for and will be coming
nice.
out.
Novels in your work and enlightening me at least into some topics there. And your book, Jennifer Blood, I'm really looking forward to that. That sounds like it'll be right up my alley. Something that I'm gonna
Awesome.
actually go out and buy a comic book. How about that? I'll do it.
Do it. Your friends will think
Yeah,
you're cool.
exactly.
Finally, I'll think Danny's cool.
See?
There you go. It's already working.
It's already working. Got that
41
Jennifer
years
Blood
in the
street cred.
making. Thank you
Yes,
so much, Fred. It was an honor. Well, once again, I want to thank Fred for coming on to our little pop cult show. That was really fun to talk to, such a prolific writer who has literally worked on like everything. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, so that was great. Great time. I'm like speechless right now.
It was really cool. I mean, when I saw his his resume,
Yeah.
I guess, and I saw because I downloaded the Marvel Unlimited app,
Mhm.
which is really cool because it gives you like over 28,000 comic books, and they also give a free week trial. So that's what I'm doing right now. But I looked up his name on there, and he has like over 200 writing. What would you call it? Credits just within Marvel.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I can't read all these in a day before we talk to him. But I got to read some of his work, and it is just like the book. It's got that same style, kind of borderline comedy, borderline horror, which is understandable now that he's a huge horror fan, horror movie genre fan. So it makes more sense. So it's really cool. And I'm appreciate again Fred taking the time to come talk to us. So
Yeah.
really like that.
Yeah, I really like the Marvel zombie work that he's done. As you know, I love zombies, even though I'm terrified of them. But it's a fun take on seeing Marvel heroes characters in zombie form, and then having a character like Machine Man in Marvel Zombies. I think it's 3. Um, that was kind of unexpected. So having like a robot cyborg kind of character taking on zombies, which is just really fun. I saw a meme that said, or not a meme, a little video on TikTok, and it said like normal people during the zombie apocalypse, and it's like people running into the house and to escape, and then it said like video game players during a zombie apocalypse, and it's just like this dude walking out with like a baseball bat and like a big happy face, and that's how I was talking about. Like it as gruesome as it would be and terrifying, it also would be kind of fun just to like go crazy and start killing zombies. Like,
is that where your mind goes? So you're forgetting the humanity side of it. I mean,
well, yeah, I guess it'd be sad if all humanity died and whatever, but
well, no, think about it. So that was your neighbor just a day ago. Now you're going to bash his head in with a baseball bat. So you can easily disconnect those two in
well,
the zombie
one of
apocalypse.
my favorite episodes of The Simpsons is where Homer shoots Ned Flanders in the head, and they're like, "Dad, you killed zombie Flanders," and he's like, "Zombie what now?"
Zombies.
So that speaks to what I
Right.
feel about having zombies as my neighbors or my neighbor zombies.
Yeah, zombie. What are you talking about? Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
thing that I would recommend too is DC does really well with their animated films when it comes to their comic book
Yeah, they do.
adaptations.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of John Constantine Justice League Dark movies that have come out
Oh, is there?
that is on
Interesting.
HBO Max. So do you have HBO Max?
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a section on HBO Max that has DC, and it has a lot of those movies on it, and they're really good.
Yeah.
The talent is like top tier talent. They have like really good voice character actors that are working on their films, and that's I think where they've really excelled. We can argue whether or not DC movies are as good as MCU movies,
but they're
but
animated.
the animated films are really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I remember watching. I think it was like Batman: The Killing Joke. I think it is.
Yeah.
That was fantastic, and yeah, Mark Hamill as the Joker and the joke at the end. It was just, it was killing. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, to answer a question that I presented to Fred about like a character that maybe he wouldn't like to write about, but one character that I'm just really over is the Joker. I've never really been a fan of the Joker, And I just like it's so tired of seeing his face in comics and movies and his voice. I if I ever go another, if I go can go a year without ever seeing anything Joker related, I'll be a happy man. That's one of the things that I like about Harley Quinn is that she left Joker and she's not like a side
Yeah,
character
she's
to
not tied to
him.
him. Hmm.
But I just don't. I mean, I do like what they did with Zack Snyder's Justice League, extended cut, whatever that was, where they had Jared Leto at the very end, and it's I guess like at the end of Apocalypse and all that, and he's teaming up with Batman to go get Superman or whatever that is. I did like what they did with that, so it was like different take. But in general, when it comes to comics, like that's one villain that I just like gloss over when it comes on. It's just like not interesting. He's been overdone.
I hear you.
Yeah. One comic book I do recommend to you on the Marvel side is Reptile. I think they just released the first issue on the Marvel
Hmm.
app. It
Yeah, I
is
saw it on there. I think Terry Blass wrote that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so that I recommend that one to you. Really cool Chicano character that has the ability to transform himself into dinosaurs. So, kind of speaking about
That's cool.
dinosaurs again, yeah. I definitely was thinking about that character while in Hawaii and seeing Jurassic Park references and like how cool would that be able to to be to turn into a big dinosaur or pterodactyl, whatever kind of dinosaur that you can. I mean, it'd be
Hmm.
really cool. So I recommend that one as well because I love that Chicano character hero because we don't get to see that often in comic books. So that is another one that I highly recommend. I think only the first episodes or first issue is out on the app. I want to say that maybe the fourth issue is out in print. And I don't think one is out September, so I have to be next month. But yeah, good read.
Sounds good. I'll check that out.
Yeah. You're going to be a comic book nerd eventually.
Yes. Well, no, I will. I've held off long enough. It's my time now.
Yeah.
So you'll find me there. I mean, I always used to love going to Comic Cons when I had the chance to.
Yeah.
So, but mainly just for the free stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I was a little disappointed the last time I went to Comic Con. There wasn't like a lot of like swag. Like, I feel like in the olden days, like they had like a ton of swag that they would give
Hmm.
you, and now
Hmm.
everything's like for sale. And there's not a lot of free giveaways. Like I think that they should get back to that. Like if you are paying and standing in line, throw us
Yeah,
a bone,
definitely.
like make some because I mean there definitely are a lot of exclusives, but you're
Hmm.
paying for that. You're buying. I got some cool signed copies by J. Scott Campbell, comic book artist that had a couple exclusives there for San Diego Comic Con, but. It'd be nice to have like some little freebies. I mean, they don't have to be full on like comic books, but like maybe like 12-page artist portfolio. I don't know, whatever. But it's kind of neat to have stickers, patches, anything. Just
Yeah,
give us
yeah.
some stuff. I mean, we as fans we spend a lot of money on all the movies, the books, the comics, the art. Give us some free stuff, especially from the
Yeah,
big
hopefully.
companies, right? Like maybe not from the artists,
Yeah.
but like DC, Marvel, Disney can afford to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, they can. We give them enough money, they can give back, I guess.
Yeah,
And hopefully next year they'll have another in-person Comic Con,
yeah.
and it won't just be the Comic Con at home, which is I get it, but so hopefully we'll as a society come together enough to allow that to happen.
Yeah, please, everyone, just get freaking vaccinated already. Like this, I
Right.
can't believe that we're still having this conversation. Like, oh my God,
Exactly.
like it just
The vaccine's been out for like 8 months now, and we're still having to convince people not to take sheep dewormer medicine. But anywho,
it's so sad. Like obviously we had to kind of jump through some hoops to be able to be let into Hawaii, but while we are there,
hmm,
there's talks about closing it out again for tourists, and
yeah,
it's just so sad. Like, I mean, I was luckily enough, I would have been devastated if my vacation was canceled because it was canceled the previous year. I was supposed to go to Hawaii, and it just is such a amazing time that I had. Granted, fortunate enough because I was able to get vaccinated and chose to get vaccinated and went through, what you have to do in order to be able to travel. And I had this amazing experience. And it's like, you're really missing out if you're not, joining the club and getting your vaccinations and protecting other people. I mean, there's a lot of other, people that are out there that have weakened immune systems and,
Hmm.
are predisposition to having a higher chance of dying from this. And so it just,
Right.
I mean, let's come together and just like forget all
Do
this
your part.
rhetoric. Yes, like just do it and like stop
Hmm.
the freaking bickering back and forth and the arguing and just get on with their lives and enjoy, because this is so like it's not enjoyable, like it's not fun, like
Right.
the arguing. And I love to argue, but like the arguing is like, we're done, like let's just chill out and like have an enjoyable year and like
Right.
celebrate and have fun and love and
Exactly.
like, I'm not a hippie, but Jesus, like, aren't we tired of this? Like, aren't we over it? Like, it's insane. Like, I mean, it just has
Yeah, I
been an
agree.
insane time, and we just need to come together as a country and get through this, and then like start finding common ground and just having fun again, and we talk
Hmm.
about how pop culture plays a role in people coming together and being able to enjoy time regardless of religious, political
Right. Hmm.
affiliation. Like, go out and see, Shang-Chi or, Suicide Squad, and just enjoy your life. And there's so much good in the world that you can be out there and, having fun instead of like being on the internet bickering about someone not being forcing you to get a freaking shot, like,
Hmm.
rant over.
There you
Yeah,
go. Well, hopefully that will come true and we'll get to enjoy things as they were before
yeah,
to a degree, but even better.
yeah,
Hopefully we'll have learned something. I don't think we will, but hopefully we'll have learned something that makes us better on the other side of this pandemic.
yeah,
So,
yeah. What on a positive note, I don't know if you saw, but in your neck of the woods, Lady Gaga announced that she's doing a new Vegas review,
hmm,
jazz
the
music.
jazz review, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Hmm.
super stoked. I think it went on sale Saturday. Obviously, I was busy and I wasn't paying attention, but that's something I would die to see. When I saw her in Vegas, she had the two shows, so like the pop and then the jazz,
Yeah.
and I saw the pop, not the jazz, and now this is just the jazz, and so I would love to see that. I'm really excited for that album to come out with Tony Bennett, see that performance. And then she has a new album coming out with the remix to Chromatica. So a lot of good stuff coming out from Lady
Yeah.
Gaga too.
That looks. Yeah, I saw that they announced the show, so I'm trying to get us in there for a Pop Cult X interview with her, but I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, that would be
But
pretty
imagine if it
amazing.
did.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to speak, but it would be pretty amazing.
It would be. We can dream, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. What was it that Fred was saying, that humble modesty really doesn't get you anywhere. So I think the more that we talk to people within various industries that have had success, you really start to see that that's a common thread, right? That it's just like
yeah,
going
it's
out
true.
there, doing it, not being you know, intimidated or thinking that you're not good enough to land an interview or land a job, and really believing in your talent and your strengths and going out there and going for it. And I think that, even with people that you may dislike, like let's say a Kanye West, like they have that motivation, that desire to make it, and they just go out there and do
Hmm.
it. So,
That's true.
yeah, these interviews are very much inspiring to me, because it just shows that you can accomplish what you want in this life. You just have to go out and get it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Just manifest what you want and make it happen.
Yeah.
So, if you want it bad enough, you will make it happen. And I guess I'll just have to make that interview happen somehow.
I'm gonna light a candle over here. Maybe do some Santeria magic. Maybe kill a chicken or a dead chicken or a fake chicken, and eat some KFC or something with the chicken, and we'll see if we can make that happen.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, on that note, we'll let Gabe go do his summoning circle.
Yeah.
And we want to thank everyone for tuning in again to this episode 24 of Pop Cult X. We really appreciate you guys watching, listening. We still want to hear from you. So still send us your messages. Send us what you guys would like us to talk about. Maybe something that's been on your mind. Hey, drop us a voicemail at our website, and we'll get it on the show somehow. And that way you can get your little soapbox rant on.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Be safe.